Welcome. This is DHB Recovery Network, and I'm your host, Miss Day. Today we have the infamous founder, Miss Ernestine Rombouts of Changes in Action. She is a L.I.C.S.W, SUDP, M.A.C.
A lot of spaghetti.
Yes. She is a chemical dependency mental health therapist, educator, trainer, mentor, and supervisor of Changes in Action, which is a private practice and consulting service in Renton, Washington. She is my esteemed mentor.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you're
My
welcome.
esteemed mentee.
And supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
And I am honored to have you here, both
Thank you.
professionally and personally in my life.
I'm honored to be here. Yay.
Thank you. So thank you for taking your time for being here and sharing your stories with us. I have a few questions. And the first one will be, let's see. For those who don't know what your initials at the end of your name stand for, can you please tell us?
Sure. And that's kind of why I said, like a lot of spaghetti behind my name, because a lot of people are getting different credentials, and the one that has been a big one for me is the L.I.C.S.W, and that actually came out of the degree of an M.S.W, which is a Master in Social Work. And then the state wanted people to become licensed. And so that happened way back in 1992. And the L.I.C.S.W stands for Licensed Independent Clinical Social Worker. And that is recognized pretty much statewide and also nationally. And then the SUDP, which is the Substance Use Dependency Professional or Substance Use Disorder Professional, that has been kind of a long time coming out of the old CCDC that some people who may be watching this are going to be familiar with, because that's what the credentialing used to be, which was the chemical dependency counselors credentialing, and it was levels 1, 2, and 3 that all had to do with academic background and what you had done in the field. And so the SUDP now is the newest one, so Substance Use Disorder Professional. And then the M.A.C, which I lovingly say is not a pimp on the street, for those that are colloquial, but a M.A.C is a Master Addiction Counselor, and that is through NADAC. So NADAC is the National Association that represents all the drug and alcohol counselors. And it's interesting because these licenses have kind of evolved as the fields of social services have evolved as well. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. What inspired you to pursue a career in mental health?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is like a really, really profound question, because I always felt, even as a little kid, that I wanted to work with people. That I knew. And as a little kid, I was the one in elementary school, definitely in middle school and high school, that people would come to because they felt that I had either sound advice, I would be able to listen to them, I was empathetic, I was caring, and, a loyal friend. And so when it was time to go to college, one of the things that I knew I wanted to do was I wanted to get a degree in social services. But that came out of my senior year in high school, where I was really interested in languages. And I was thinking, this was one of my dreams. I don't think I had shared this with you. But my first language is Dutch. You don't hear the accent anymore because I've lived in this country now, for over 60 years. And I learned English at a very young age, but I'm bilingual. But when I was in school, I learned French and I learned Spanish. And I was really good in those languages. And at one point, and it really hit me my senior year, I thought, you know what I'd really like to do is be an interpreter. And my ultimate dream, and I don't share this with very many people, was actually to have a job at the UN. I know, huge. Because I thought, now this would be a great way to work with people. I'm meeting people, I get to use the languages. It would be something that would expand my horizons. I'd be able to travel. And then I thought, you know what, if I do that, I don't know if I'm going to make enough money. At the same time, I was doing a lot of theater and music. And I thought, well, maybe that's what I'll go into. And so it was like one of those things where languages, theater, music, people. When I was a senior and I was applying for colleges, I decided, you know what, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for social services. And then I thought to myself, well, you know what, they don't make a lot of money either. So it was just kind of a toss-up. But I just remember that senior year was a very transitional year for me. And I was trying to decide between those three different genres, which way to go. So the good thing is I have maintained some of my language background, which is good. And I still do music, and I do that kind of on more of a part-time basis. And social services then became the choice. And I ended up getting my B.S.W. at the University of Washington. And at that time, I thought, okay, this is great, and I'm loving this. And I loved my internships. I had 2 really fabulous internships. And I was thinking that I was probably going to become a medical social worker because I also have an interest in medicine. And the more I found out about, you know, what a medical social worker would do, I thought, you know what, that's not for me. I don't want to be writing discharge summaries. I mean, even though that's important, but I definitely want to be with the people. And I thought, I just don't know right now if I'm ready for that. So I ended up going and getting my master's degree. And I went out of state to do that. And I did that for a very important reason, because I thought if I stay here in Seattle, I probably will have the same people that I had for my undergrad. And I wanted a very different perspective. And it was also time to just kind of be around other people and move on. And my M.S.W. program was fantastic. I loved it. I went to University of Denver, and I was the youngest of 2 people in that program. And everybody that was there were pretty much like my parents' age. And they had had an incredible amount of experience clinically, as a director, budget person, case manager, whatever. So I learned from my professors, but I also learned from my classmates.
Wonderful.
And then it was kind of interesting. I had an opportunity to do an internship in a hospital again, and I found my niche. And my niche ended up being working with chemically dependent youth. That's how I got into this.
Right.
And at that time, having an M.S.W. degree, but also having some training or understanding of, you know, chemical dependency or substance use, as we call it today, was kind of unusual. But I'm really glad that I had that forethought, because here we are in the year 2024.
Yes.
You have to know that stuff.
Yes.
So it's been a journey that I knew that I was always going to work with people. What that was going to look like and who it was going to be with kind of evolved as I continued my academic studies.
Beautiful.
And so here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. Long answer.
Oh, it's a good answer, because it shows that we don't often know exactly what we're going to be doing, but just keep going forward. There's an evolution.
Yep.
And that's what I love.
Yep.
That's what I love. Transformation.
Yep.
Evolution.
Yep.
Going forward.
Yes.
Reaching for it.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Yep.
Let's see here. And see, there's some things that I've learned that we haven't
that you didn't know. We haven't talked about it. Right.
And I've
Right.
been knowing you for a
long time
now.
Well, you know, and the other
Years.
funny thing is, and I don't know if we'll talk about this later, but, you know, was also the introduction to becoming an academician, which was never on my life journey as a professional. I always loved being in school. I love learning, even to today. But it was such an ironic thing that back in 1989, I was getting my addiction classes completed at Edmonds College. And then I was working at a treatment center, and there was a co-worker there that said, you know what, I've been asked to do a speaking engagement, but I won't be able to do it. I don't even know if you know this story. And so she said, it's about women in recovery. It's good, yeah. I thought, okay, check, I know that, all right. And it's in an academic institution, and I thought, oh, now that'll be different, because I have been doing a lot of public speaking at agencies, you know, and in my line of work as a counselor. And this is for a class called Social Psychology. And I'm like, okay, you know, I'm game. Yeah, I'm game. My biggest thing was, oh my goodness, it's an academic institution, so people are going to want to walk away with something, right? Which is a little bit different than clients who basically are there to, you know, kind of get self-help or, you know, self-growth kind of things. So I went there, and it was a 3-hour class, and the first couple of minutes were a little bit scary, you know, and it took me a minute to kind of find my stride.
A 3-hour class, that's a long time.
And that's a long time.
Yeah.
That's a long time, yeah. And then we took a break, but, you know, I thought, oh my goodness, you know, that's a long time. But anyway, so I started, you know, going, and it was fine. And then I finished, and I thought, well, okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. And the next day, the director of our program, which at that time was the drug and alcohol program at Edmonds, he called me and he said, I don't know what you did. And I thought, oh no, wrong class, wrong topic, wrong night. I said something that offended somebody. And he goes, but the students loved you. Are you interested in teaching? This is a true story. I don't think I've shared this with you.
No, you haven't.
And I thought, teaching? I love being in school, but I had never imagined myself being a teacher. And that is actually how I got my first job in academia, which was at Edmonds College in 1989. And I taught there until 2007. And then along the way ended up at Seattle Central and also at Bellevue. And that actually, it's interesting. I told students, I said, you know, don't just limit yourself to thinking about being, you know, a therapist or a counselor or a case manager. Open it up and think about possibly teaching, you know, being a person that could work for the government, you know, or whatever, because there's lots of other opportunities. And I loved teaching. I'm not doing it anymore, and I miss it. And part of it was that give and take, you know, exchange of information and being challenged. And what was really interesting in all the years that I did that, I really found out how much I knew and how much I still didn't know. But I loved it. But that's my story, because I meant to tell you that a long time ago. And it was one of the things that was not part of my journey that I ever thought I would do.
And look at you.
And there we are.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then we have been talking privately about some things that you have on the back burner.
Yes.
That's going to come to the forward burner.
Yes. And this is what we hope.
Yes. And so a lot of you may be interested. So
we'll keep you posted.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So let's see here. Now, so you did mention that some of the trainings could be with big companies, and then you said something about, I'm not sure what you said, but
EAPs?
I was thinking about corporate.
Oh, okay.
Because
on the
there's,
corporate
in
level.
academia, you can be a teacher, but then you can also go the corporate route and assist people through corporations.
There are lots of corporations that have internal people who will provide some of the ongoing trainings that may be mandatory. You know, where if you're working in a workplace that deals with safety issues, then, you know, you have to get those ongoing in-service trainings. But there have been a lot of supervisors and managers that have found out that some of their faculty or their staff or their workers, you know, need to have some other information about how to take care of yourself, you know, how to balance your life, how to be able to work as a team member, you know, good communication. And so it has now kind of opened up where a lot of corporations will hire people from the outside. And I've done that. And I really like that, because that's a real different feel than being like even in the classroom, you know, or working with my clients. And so you go there, and the audience a lot of times is everything from an administrator down to a supervisor, down to, a secretary,
Admin,
admin, administration. Yeah, I'm not discounting any of that,
Mm-hmm.
but you've got all these different peoples that are coming in for this particular topic. And one of the things that makes a good trainer or teacher is know your audience. That's really, really important. And that was one thing, and I know this sounds kind of weird, that I really learned by watching and listening to comedians, believe it or not. I've always been in awe of comedians, because you've got all kinds of people in your audience.
Yes.
And not everybody's going to like what you have to say. Not everybody's going to laugh at what you have to say. They may dislike you. They may think that whatever you're saying is, controversial, whatever. So when you are working within an entity like a corporation, you need to pay attention to that particular ambiance and that particular population. That culture. Thank you. That's a great word.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And to be able to engage them.
Exactly. And make it worth their time. And that's the
Yes.
other thing that you find a lot of times in corporate America, that if they're going to do this for a couple of hours, is this going to be worth my time? Am I going to walk away with something different, or is it just going to be the same old?
Blah, blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah.
exactly.
Yeah. And that's
Exactly.
not what we want. And
Right.
that's not what you do.
I try not
That's
to.
why you're
I try not
here.
to.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see here.
Yep.
So, what is your core philosophy when it comes to treating clients?
Oh my goodness. I believe, and I've always believed this, that somewhere inside of us, I don't know how big it is, how little it is, one knows when something is not right. Or you have done something that is not okay. I really believe that. Now, what you do with that and who you share that with, of course, is the big thing. And so working with clients, I want them to be honest. I want them to be able to trust me. I want them to be able to respect me, and I want to give respect back. And so what I expect a lot of times from people that I have worked with is, I'm not going to do it for you. You're going to have to, it's got to come from your core, your heart, your soul. And I'm constantly telling people, get out of your head and get into your heart and your soul, because that's really where it's at. This is working overtime a lot of times. And having done a lot of addiction work, that's a lot of times where addicts will go. They'll think their way out of it. They'll tell stories to get out of it, But those emotions, it's kind of like, well, then where are they? What do you do with those?
Yes.
And those could be the things that you're using over or hurting yourself over, And so the philosophy that I've had is I believe that change can happen. That's also part of the reason why the name of my business is what it is, is change is an action. You got to do something. It's not always going to come to you, and people aren't always going to give you all the answers and give you all the skills and the tools, which would be lovely, okay? So you've got to do something. Yeah.
And work with that intuition.
Exactly.
And in recovery, it's important to get that recovery where you're not in the addiction, the act of addiction, so that you can get in contact with that intuition. Because when you're actively using, it is hard to access that intuition because your mind and your whole body's inebriated. So, okay.
And it's interesting because working with addiction, one of the things too is if I, as a provider, am getting too close, that's when a lot of times people will either shut down, or the complete opposite will happen, where they begin to open up because they realize that, it's safe. I want to create a safe environment. That's the other thing.
Yes.
Along with the trust and the respect and the honesty. However, that may or may not happen the first time out. I do know that I'm able to get people engaged and into the process of wanting to make a change. Whether they do it, you never know.
It's up to them.
It's up to them.
Yes.
And there have been days and weeks, months, years when I've kind of thought, what am I doing? What am I doing? And at the same time, I've seen absolute golden moments where somebody all of a sudden just gets it, you know, and their life is changing. You know, their mind is clear, their heart is open, they're sharing their feelings, you know, they're sharing their thoughts. And it's not all about them. Because one of the things too, that when you're dealing with addiction in particular, you're usually dealing with a pretty narcissistic person. It's only about me. And many people, unfortunately, are not aware of just, wow, how much that has impacted, you know, other people, places, and things around them.
Their family.
Their family in particular.
Their
That's
community.
huge. The community,
Their, wherever they are. Their geographical location. And then if people are using in a group, then it affects the whole culture. So.
And the other thing is, and particularly with kids, you know, I kind of call it the pack mentality, is if I quit, then I won't have these friends. And that's hard for a teen, and I get it.
It is. It's hard for an adult.
It's hard for an adult too. It's true. It's true.
Especially since COVID, and now relationships have changed a lot. So.
And one thing that I'm very happy about, which may be kind of part of this whole thing too, is, you know, the idea of family. Because for a long, long time in the field of addictions, and I know I'm putting a lot of emphasis on that right now. I'll come back to mental health. But the thing is that people really thought, fix one person, fix the person who is, quote, the problem, and everything will be copacetic. And you know what? Huge mistake. Because everybody in the family, whether that's friends, people that you work with, people that you know, socialize with, that could be a number of folks, they've all been impacted. And if they don't get help and support as well, then you know what? It's going to be like aliens living together. It's not going to make any difference. And we've really moved away from that, which is really, really great. And I'm really glad about that. You know, because just fixing one or making it better is not going to work. You know, and family has also taken on a whole different look. You know, people always think that's my biological family. Nope.
It could be the mailman and the people at the grocery store that you see once a week.
Exactly. Or my friends at work, or my friends at school, you know, people that I know in my neighborhood. You know, there's a lot of people that have, quote, extended family members, but they're not biological, you know. So family is really, that's huge. That's huge.
Village.
There we go, the village.
Let's see here. So, what advice would you give to someone entering the field today?
Oh my goodness. One of the things that I feel is really, really important, and it's going to sound maybe somewhat parental or arrogant, is that you've got to know yourself. You need to have limits and boundaries. If you do not have that, this work, especially in social services, is just going to suck you dry. Because it is exhausting work. It also has golden moments, and that's both in addictions and mental health work. You know, one of the differences is that addiction work is usually a lot shorter. Mental health work is longer. So you're going to be in there, you know, for the long haul with people. And it can be really draining, you know, and it can kind of feel like, you know, is anything happening? So I feel that when people are getting into social services, know yourself. Definitely have limits and boundaries if you don't get them. Definitely have a support system. That's so important, where you can bounce things off of people. And the funny thing is, I would say the majority of the people that are in my life are not people that are doing the work, because I know what would happen. You know, it would be like we'd be talking shop
all day.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, so I try to kind of mix it up, and it's not like a conscious choice, but that's kind of the way it's been. And I think that that's really important as well. And definitely to get educated, because this is one of the things that I know a lot of times people feel like, man, I'm going to school, I'm getting all these classes, I'm doing all this stuff, and it's taking a long time. But you've got to really understand the foundation of what it is that you are doing for a long, long time. And it's not the worst thing in the world, but going back to the addiction field again, people were basically saying and doing things that they had done in their own recovery and passing it on to people. And a lot of times that stuff is not going to work. You know, you need to have some clinical background as to why you are suggesting, you know, that people do certain things. Because what worked for you may or may not work for another person.
Right.
You know, if I am using heroin, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to work great with heroin addicts.
Right.
You know, same thing with alcoholism, same thing with codependency. So I think it's really important to get education and really understand, you know, the human spirit.
Yes.
That's really important.
And information is always changing.
Yep.
That's
Constantly.
another reason why it's a, thank you for bringing that up. It's so important to get education because the information is changing yearly.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
all right.
Yep.
Thank you for
Definitely. Yep.
that. Let's see. How do you maintain your own mental health and well-being while working in this field?
There are days when I feel like that's not happening. When I am really off and I'm feeling like, you know, I just am not sure if I can do this, then either, you know, I will take that day off, or what I will do is I'll connect with people, which I think is very, again, you know, I said that in what I feel you need to go into this field with. You got to have a support system. And I also like to do things that are completely different from the work. I love live music. I love live dance. I love live theater. And those are three things I definitely have in my life on a regular basis. And when I'm engaged in those things, I'm telling you, it's almost like the Calgon take me away.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. And I really like to cook and bake. I like to cook and bake for other people. I really enjoy that. And I love to travel, and I have unfortunately not been able to do that like I used to, but I just came back from a trip. But it's like, you know, traveling is something that I love to do because you find, you know, you find out a lot about yourself.
Yes. Yes, and other people,
and other people.
Cultures, especially if you're going out of the country. But even sometimes going out of the state, there's a difference between state cultures.
So those are some of the things that I do, and I really try to work on getting more rest, because kind of growing up, the message was, you know, if you're resting or relaxing all the time, it's like you're wasting time. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And as I'm getting older, you know, I feel like it's really important to rest.
It is. It is.
And just have some quiet.
There's so many movements out there now. What was one of them? Well, I won't say them here because I might be infringing on somebody's.
Right.
But to rest is important.
Yep.
Absolutely. To be in your happy place as often as possible can change your life.
Right.
And give you something to look forward to. Mine is going to get body scrubs.
Yep.
And that's a definite Calgon take me away, is getting scrubbed and massaged.
Yes.
With warm water.
Yes.
Love it. So.
And I started doing that more in kind of like my adult years. The massage thing. My sister actually got me turned on to pedicures, which I never did. You know, that kind of thing. I've done a few facials. Those are wonderful. You know, that whole thing of touch is really wonderful. I know some people can't tolerate it. However, I think that's really wonderful too, and it feels good.
Yes.
You know, absolutely.
Especially if there's stored trauma.
Yes.
Because a lot of the trauma sits in the body. And so getting massage can release some of that.
Absolutely.
And I've heard of some people even crying at massage sessions because they didn't know that they had stored trauma in their back, so to speak. So, all right. So let's see. What do you hope your legacy in mental health and addiction recovery care will be?
Wow. I still have a dream to write a book. The question is, if I write a book, what would it be? Would it be vignettes with what I did and how I handled it? Would it be more of a workbook? Thought about that. Would it be, you know, what I did in the field and how I kind of went through a lot of changes from not only being a clinician, but being, you know, an academician. I want people, and I hope that people will remember me as somebody who was somewhat of a maverick. Not that I'm making that as a woo-woo, like, you know, look at me kind of a thing. I've always spoken my truth. I've been honest. I've been transparent with people. People have not always agreed with what I've said or what I've done or the way that I have done things. But I follow my own drummer. I never want to put people in harm, and I don't think that I've ever done that. I love people. I care for people. And I want whatever it is that I have passed on to people for them to use it, but do it their own way. Like when I'm passing things on to you, I know that I've done them, but I want you to do it Donna style.
Yes.
Because I have no problem, I have no ego with that of you having to do it the way that I did it. But I do feel it's important for people to feel like they've been empowered.
Yes.
Empowered is a huge piece for me too.
Yes.
And accountability. Accountability as a provider, but also, you know, accountability as being a client. It needs to go both ways.
Yes, and staying authentic.
Yes.
Authentic to thyself.
Yes,
It's
always,
important.
always,
Yes.
always. And both the giving and receiving of respect. You know, when I worked with kids, a lot of times I found out that, you know, there are two things that they really want. And one of them is trust and respect. And when, you know, I kind of found those two things out many, many, many years ago, I always say to my kids, I go, listen, you know, I know you want your parents or your friends or whoever to trust you. However, unfortunately, you've taught people to not do that. And so you're going to have to work at some ways to be able to get that back. And I'm willing to help you work on that. And, you know, as long as you are honest with me, we can get somewhere.
Yes.
Same thing with respect, and I think that a lot of young people, some adults as well, you know, don't really know what respect is. And so if I'm listening to you, then the expectation is that you want to be, that I want to be listened. Or, you know, hang on. If I'm listening to you, then I want you to be listened to by me. Yes. It needs to go both ways. Heard. Yep. Yes. And it's a give and take. And I think, you know, that can also be taught. When you're working with people, because some people didn't have it in their upbringing for whatever reason. And in the world today, oh my goodness, there's such a lack of trust and respect among people, and it saddens me, you know, and I know that we can't fix all of that. However, you know, just being open to different peoples, being open to different ideas. And there is a concept in recovery that I absolutely love, and we call it the how concept. And the how concept is honesty, being honest with oneself first. If you cannot be honest with yourself, you are not going to be able to be honest with other people. It's just not possible, okay? The O is for openness, open to hearing new ways of doing things, getting out of that myopic way of looking at things, thinking that you have all the answers and that you're the only one who knows. And I've learned some of my greatest lessons from young people. It's pretty amazing. And the W is willingness, the willingness to do whatever it takes. And that is easier said than done. Sometimes that also involves acceptance. And it's kind of like, that's an owie sometimes. You know, it takes a while to get there. But I believe in those things, and I think that they're very important in the work that we do. I think they're very important for living today. I mean, just across the board.
Yes. Being a accountable human being.
Yes.
Honest, openness, and willingness. We'll add acceptance to that. Thank you. So,
yay.
My last question.
Yes.
If you were able, what would you today tell your younger self?
You need to chill. I'm a really, really intense person. And you know what? That's not always a bad thing. However, it can be a curse and a blessing. When I do something, I go all the way. And I need to realize that, you know what? I don't need to be the one who does it. I don't need to be the one who does it all. I need to be able to allow other people yeah. So, and as a little kid, I was always that kid that, initiated. I jumped in. I was ready to do it. I took risks, all that kind of stuff. And I still, that's a huge part of me. However, if I could now, with everything that I've gone through and that I know, I would say you need to chill. You need to bring it down a couple of notches. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So, all right, Miss Ernestine Rombouts of Changes in Action. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you more than you know.
This was great.
And for those out there, this is DHB Recovery Network.
Yay.
Please like, share, subscribe, but most of all, be the you that you are created to be. To remember that you are not alone and that recovery is possible one day at a time. Thank you, Miss Ernestine.
Thank you. Pleasure.